Today we're going to talk about future of games, and we have two really incredible speakers that I'm going to bring up. Both went to USC as well. The first person is Mark Merrill. Mark co-founded a company called Riot Games, based out of here in Los Angeles. I believe one of the largest employers in Southern California as well. Mark co-founded Riot Games, and one of their biggest titles is League of Legends, with over 100 million monthly players. Not sure how many are familiar with Riot or their games, but I thought we'd cue a little video real quick to give you an introduction to Mark's company. Please welcome Mark Merrill. Yeah. By the way, all that from one video game. Incredible. Next, I want to introduce Jeffrey Kaplan. Jeffrey is a world-class game designer. Some of you have heard of Blizzard Entertainment. They've made some of the most beloved franchises, gaming franchises in the world. StarCraft, Diablo, Warcraft, World of Warcraft. Jeffrey's currently the game director for Overwatch. I'd also have to say, Mark maybe agree with me, a lot of us that got into the game industry to build games, Blizzard was one of our biggest inspirations. These were the games that we were playing. These were the designers, the game creators that we really looked up to. So let's take a quick little video at some of the work that Blizzard does.
We are hope.
We are honor.
Love
We are courage.
We are justice.
We are compassion. We are determination.
We are harmony. We are Overwatch.
Please welcome Jeff Kaplan. Come on, have a seat. By the way, this is a big week for the games industry. In San Francisco, there's the Games Developers Conference. You know, thousands of developers up there. But to be honest, if you look at the panel of these two guys, this is better than any GDC talk you would ever find. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be here. Yeah.
Speaking of GDC, lots of news every year at GDC. I would say one of the big announcements from Google was a platform called Stadia, the ability to stream games directly in your browser. These guys make games that are gigabytes in size. Internet is getting faster, so download speeds and wait times are reduced. But Google is promising 1 second to get into a game directly in your browser. Pretty amazing concept. It's been in beta for a bit. They had a big game, Assassin's Creed, over the holidays. That was their first title to demonstrate this. And a lot of people were pretty excited about the performance. But I'd like to ask you guys about, we're talking about the future of games. Do you think game streaming, do you think this is something viable? Is this something that you guys are thinking about for the future?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, what we always think about with our games is we want them to reach as many people as possible. I think, Riot is very similar in that their games reach millions of people. We're making these really big games, and we want to have a lot of players enjoying them. So we always have an eye for any platform that can reach people. Currently at Blizzard, we're on the PC, we're on Xbox, PlayStation, we've got games on Switch, and we've got games on mobile platforms. So really, any new opportunity to reach more players in whatever way they want to play the game is exciting to us. So we're keeping a very optimistic outlook on these streaming services, and if it's really viable and latency tolerant, we'd love to be there.
Yeah, and I would say from our perspective, we're really excited about the improved technology. And so part of the reason is, so League of Legends, which is our one game that we've launched so far, is on PC as well. And so we think that there's a lot of really exciting ways that we can expand League of Legends in the future. And if we want it to be a sport which can last for generations, then we know we have to sort of evolve it beyond the PC platform. Great technological developments like that will help us accomplish those things. And it is really exciting because historically, even as the technology has enabled streaming to deliver a great gameplay experience, the cost of operating a streaming service wasn't economical enough to justify sort of the massive scale investments, and sort of hard to find the right business model for players to participate in it. But I think that nut is going to be cracked over the next couple of years, and I think it'll take companies like Google and others that are trying to do this to make it happen.
So we have game developers here in the audience, people that are starting companies. Game discovery is a big issue. If you think about stores like Steam, it's been one of our go-to sources to download PC games. It's a big store. There's a lot of titles out there. Most recently, Epic Games, creators of Fortnite, they've opened up a store, and they're starting to disrupt the industry a bit. Rather than taking a 30% cut on game downloads, I think they've marketed that it's 12%, which is a big difference when you're talking about, do I build this myself? Do I leverage platforms out there that could help me? And which of these platforms have large user bases? The messaging service Discord as well has announced a game store. Curious to think for the game developers out there in the audience, what are your thoughts on these new services? Are you thinking, is it best to make decisions going all in on one, or trying to spread out your IP across a variety of stores?
So yeah, from my perspective, I think it really depends on the nature of your game and what features the platform can offer. So certain types of online games require an awful lot of support from sort of a metagame standpoint, and a lot of times as a developer, you may not have the expertise or capability to build as robust of a back end as you would want. And so if there's third parties that can help you make that easier, and you can focus on delivering an incredible game and content experience, and then someone else can help you deliver and distribute that, I think it's very worthwhile. Certain games may benefit from being across every platform, and other games may want to go a little more exclusive if the cost of investment from a metagame standpoint will be really high but necessary to deliver your game, that you may require you to focus on one particular platform.
Yeah, I think Mark gives a great answer, and Another way of looking at it too is for all of us as individual game developers, competition amongst publishers and distributors is great for us. They're going to be clamoring for great games. They want to feature great games. It means we're going to have more opportunity to put our games out. I don't think, like Mark said, I don't think there's any right strategy. It all depends on your company and your game and what you're trying to achieve and how much exclusivity are you trying to give based on the offer you're trying to get. Maybe it's what you and your team really needs right now is extra funding and that extra focus. Or maybe you're playing more of the long game and you're interested in as far as reach as possible, which means you might not get the best deal because you're not going exclusive, but you'll be way more out there and you'll be reaching a lot more players. So very hard choices, but I think more people competing in the space is good for all of us.
Right.
And just to build on Jeff's point for 1 second, think about the content wars as it relates to film, TV, et cetera, right? And the platform wars. Why would somebody pay for HBO? Well, because they want to watch Game of Thrones. And so, the content is oftentimes really the draw. And so from that perspective, there's never been a better time to be a content developer. The one challenge of that, of course, is there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of great content out there. And so then finding niches or finding ways to differentiate is incredibly important as well.
Got it. We touched upon Epic Games for a minute there. Curious how many people here have played Fortnite? I raise a hand?
Yeah.
We have some Fortnite players. Crazy to think that game came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And it quickly amassed 200 million users, $2 billion in revenue, dances all over the internet. It's quite a cultural phenomenon. But just about 5-6 weeks ago, EA launched a game called Apex Legends. Some of you may now be playing that. That game reached 50 million users in 30 days. Actually a higher trajectory than Fortnite. It's all based on this new genre called Battle Royale. And there's other people that have been doing this as well. There's PUBG, there's other players. This isn't anything new. But I'm curious to think your perspectives on these emerging genres that appear really quick. Your games last 10 years and longer, and they're live services. What do you think about when you see these type of genres pop up? Is it reactionary? Do you think it has staying power? Would love to get your perspective.
Oh, I think absolutely they have staying power. What's interesting is if you think about a game like League of Legends or a game like World of Warcraft, I mean, these were emerging genres as well at one point. When League of Legends is often called a MOBA, is sort of the phrase that's used to describe it.
It's a weird name.
It's a weird name. It stands for stuff. It doesn't matter. But none of it matters after like 5-10 years. We just all call it MOBA now. But, that was sort of groundbreaking at the time. It really evolved from a different genre, which was a real-time strategy game, which was sort of the incumbent big thing. So games are very innovative and very evolutionary. And it doesn't mean that they're just fads. They all build on themselves. The beautiful part of it is the players who got excited about Battle Royale, maybe first through PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, then into Fortnite, then into Apex Legends, eventually they're going to graduate from the genre altogether to a new genre that none of us in this room yet know what it is. And that's one of the things that's really awesome about video games is it's an early art form, and it's still evolving, and we haven't seen the extent of it yet. Somebody much smarter than me once described making a video game like making a movie if you had to invent the camera every time. So we're on this sort of technological innovation curve that we don't really know what's going to come next, and that's what's exciting about it.
Yeah, and I think one of the important takeaways of the rapid growth of these types of games is as the distribution infrastructure continues to mature and sort of the market is primed for high quality games as a service, the ability to get from unknown to massive scale rapidly it's more possible now than ever before. And that's, again, a really exciting thing for a developer. But then from a staying power standpoint, the challenge is how do you keep your audience engaged? What can you do to continue to develop the game? How do you continue to differentiate? And what other types of around game experiences can you utilize to help delight your audience? And that's something we've spent an awful lot of time about as well, because again, 13 years into Riot's history, we still have one game. And so the S in games is still aspirational at this point, but hopefully that'll change. And but we still do a lot of things again
It's a very
around the
good game.
It is a good
though,
game.
So
It's a good one to
very
have. You're gonna have
proud,
one.
yeah.
Well, thank you. And we have a video that can show a little bit of that at some point. If you can just let me know whenever we want to go to that.
Yeah, I think now's a pretty good time to
Okay.
talk about that. What's essentially happened with your IP is you've built games that have transcended into evergreen brands. And consumer behavior now, being online, wanting more content, wanting to dive deeper into the lore of your games, I think now's a good time to kind of cue where in this case, League of Legends has evolved into.
Yeah.
So the video we're going to show right now, do you want to kind of preface it?
Yeah, just to orient you guys a little bit to what you're going to see. So League of Legends is this multiplayer online battle arena game. It's 2 teams of 5-on-5 that are playing each other. It's also evolved into a professional sport. So we have 13 leagues around the world. Top player last year made about $5.5 million. Of the 50 starters in the North American leagues, they average about $350,000 from a salary standpoint. So these are real professional leagues. You're going to see our World Championship Finals, which was in Korea. We had 99.6 million people watch it live, which just beat the Super Bowl, which had 98 million, the first time that ever happened. We actually created a virtual band that evolved from characters in our game, and then we released a song that we wrote for that virtual band. It was a K-pop band, and then of course we sold the skins of those characters in the game. That's how we make our revenue, and the song became the #1 most downloaded song in the world. So it's a little weird to see, but it's a glimpse of how sort of the virtual and the physical come together to deliver great experiences for players.
So I'm not sure if you saw there's augmented reality characters on the screen. It's really evolved from just a concert, but integrating the digital assets into the experience as well. What about you guys, Jeffrey? In terms of how are you delivering experiences to your users outside of just the traditional game?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we love doing is all forms of storytelling. We have a really amazing cinematics group at Blizzard. We create what we call animated shorts, which are short animated movies that tell the story of the characters inside the game world. We want to build up a game world fiction that transcends the game. There are a lot of people who want to interact with Overwatch, for example, who aren't gamers themselves but fall in love with the characters. And it's led us into a really fun space where we're making movies, we've made comics. We now have Legos. You can buy Lego Overwatch figures, which is like super exciting to us. We have a partnership with Nerf, so the guns that you get in the game, you can buy Nerf guns and shoot each other around the office or playroom or whatever you want to do. It's a lot of fun. So to us, we feel like it's not just that we're making video games. We're trying to create universes and worlds. We grew up as fans of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and these universes that became the sort of playground for our imaginations, and we want to do that same thing for the next generation.
Got it.
You could actually see in the video where they were talking about Overwatch early on, if you guys remember the sort of the voiceover lines of what the characters were saying, Mercy, the big angel with wings saying, I am compassion, right? But I think Blizzard does such an incredible job of infusing story and emotion and feeling into their games. I could go on and on about how great the experiences are at Deliver. We've always aspired to try to hit their bar.
Thank you.
Thinking about future game developers, teams that are working together today, more and more we're starting to see distributed teams, people that are pursuing game projects but the designers might be in Europe, the engineers might be in the US, the artists might be in Asia, anywhere around the world. And we've been accustomed to building games where all the resources are under one roof. Curious to think about where you see the future of game development. Is, the globalization, is that really changing the way you approach games, or how do you foresee that evolving in the future?
So we currently really still like having sort of a campus strategy where we bring as many people possible together, because we think that there's still incredible value in building intimate relationships, and oftentimes people with different competencies that may be on different teams that you may never have a specific work reason to interact with on something you're working on. If you're walking around in the halls, or you see them at lunch or whatnot, there's a lot of cross-pollination and knowledge sharing that can occur that's really powerful. That being said, I think that companies that are starting from scratch, that start with a distributed workforce, build or find ways to evolve their organizational systems and alignment mechanisms and workforce planning to bake in the distributed nature from day one, where I think it makes it a lot easier as technology has continued to evolve, and there's so many great collaboration tools to enable distributed development. So I definitely think that is a trend which is going to continue to happen. I think for, even though we're only 13 years old, we're still sort of a legacy incumbent in this regard, and I think we're trying to figure out how to potentially utilize more distributed development over time. And art sourcing, art outsourcing or other types of outsourcing, or leveraging middleware, various tools that are developed from elsewhere, is something that is very common in game development and is somewhat along that path. But there's a great company called Hypixel, which is sort of building the next generation Minecraft, which has a 100% distributed development team that's really effective. And I'm sure there's lots of other teams around the world that are doing that I don't know about as well.
Yeah, I think there are great advantages to both sort of styles of development, bringing a team in-house. Even when you do have like more of a campus environment like we have at Blizzard, where we do most of the development. We're down in Irvine, California. The level of representation from across the globe is actually amazing on our development teams. We have people from pretty much everywhere, which just amazes me. There are brilliant game developers everywhere. So if teams are successfully capturing them, whether it's moving them to a centralized location or working in a distributed workforce, I think that whatever works for people can be great. There's even very successful titles that have had a distributed workforce. Like I believe PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was co-developed by a group in Korea as well as Wisconsin, I think it was. So that was a really interesting, you want to talk about time zone challenges. And then we have a game at Blizzard in development right now that's being co-developed by a team in Irvine and a team in China right now. And so far it's been very successful. And again, there are sort of disadvantages and advantages to that type of system. But I think, people wanting to work together and the fact that there's brilliant talent all over the world, when brilliant people want to come together, they're going to find a way.
Yep, got it. So one of the last questions I want to chat with you about is based upon a conversation I had with Mark at your office, a few weeks back. Mark had a head of karma at Riot, and we were talking about some initiatives they have around player health and wellness. You don't hear about that a lot from game companies, what they're doing not to only serve their players from a gaming perspective, but also from a mental health and wellness. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how game companies could assist with social entrepreneurship and some of these initiatives that both your companies are doing in this area.
Sure. So Karma is our internal name for our philanthropy arm, essentially, and we have a very large player base around the world and have a pretty intimate relationship with them. And so we're very concerned about things that concern our players. And so one of the and or rioters, which is our sort of word for employee is, so we try to find mechanisms to help channel their enthusiasm to help to build positive communities and to support each other. And actually, Jeff has an incredibly cool story that he could talk about that they just did at Blizzard, where I think we sort of share this philosophy. But you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was really excited last year. Blizzard came together and my team came together, and we put what we call a skin. For those of you who play video games, you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't, a skin is a costume. It's a different look of a character. and we sold one of the skins in Overwatch, with all proceeds going to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, which was an organization that was very important to us at Blizzard. And it's a very highly regarded breast cancer organization. And through the sales of a skin which was called Pink Mercy, we raised $12.7 million for the BCRF, which was the single largest donation that they've ever received, like single donation that they've ever received at one time. And it was really amazing. We partnered with the BCRF, and they literally worked with us on how that money was going to be used and which researchers it was going to fund. And it was a really big moment, I think, for everybody at Blizzard, everybody in the gaming industry, and all of our players, where we felt like we're actually making a difference, like we're having an impact on the world as a community through something, you know, as trivial as a video game. So it was a special moment for us.
Well, I think this is incredibly relevant for everybody in the business world. We're just thinking about how to create shared value and what opportunities exist at the company to help channel energy, right, or resources from or passion from various communities or your customer base to help improve things, whether it's mental health and wellness, or whether it's raising money, or whether it's training values like we try to do with sportsmanship, where again in rural China, oftentimes there's no Little League, right, and League of Legends can actually help create infrastructure to train people about how to be humble in victory and gracious in defeat and things like this, and again reinforce a lot of values and how to cultivate a positive community, and that's a real big challenge. But as the world becomes more interconnected, there's all sorts of opportunities for companies to collaborate on those types of things as well, and I think it's really important for companies to adopt that type of mindset.
That's really incredible. One last question for fun. When you're not making games, what are you playing right now? What are you drawing inspiration from, and what should maybe aspiring gamers out here look for?
Go for it.
Oh, I play an indie game called Rust, made by Face Punch Studios. I have over 1,800 hours played in Rust. It is the most hardcore player versus player experience you can ever have, and
I love that you like Rust.
I love
awesome.
that game. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. So I'm playing a bunch of things right now. I still play a lot of Hearthstone. So Hearthstone just hit. What was the anniversary? Hearthstone just celebrated
it was
anniversary.
his 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a card game online, but so it's a Blizzard title. But I have 2,700 wins in that game as an example.
Nice.
Yeah. He's like, wow, that's a lot of play. Yeah. I play a lot of League of Legends, which I feel is an incredible blessing, where it's still my favorite game of all time, which is kind of cool. And then if I have time on a plane or whatnot to play some single player games, oftentimes I'm playing turn-based strategy games, whether it's Civ or Warhammer Total War or games like that. So
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the insights.
Yeah, thank you all.
The future of gaming.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, guys.